Oh, get lucky now. Episode 7. 7's supposed to be a lucky number. And this proves to be likely to be an absolutely cracking show. And I know I say this every time, but I've got some special reasons for saying that today. Those of you who are here for the first time, my name is Dr. Steve Simpson. I'm a medical doctor by background and now work exclusively as a mind coach. And I also work exclusively with elite performers. And just before you think you're on the wrong channel, you're not, because I believe that we're all elite performers. And I can't think of anybody that I've worked with that has not been capable of being an elite performer in at least one field. So the headline topic for the show, which I think I only decided on yesterday, is fear. And not for the first time in my life, I've been helped by some invisible giants, because I have 2 questions that have already been posted. One of them is going to be a relatively easy one for me to answer. And the second one is the toughest question that anybody can ask me. And it's not the first time I've been asked this question, and it won't be the last. And if I can find the right words, then the next 30 minutes could well be the most important 30 minutes of your life so far, and indeed in the future. Now, that's a very big ask. There's, I suppose I could say there's a lot of pressure on me, but I don't feel it, because there's nobody on this planet who can answer this question. And there are plenty of people who can give a good stab at it. And I certainly have some ideas, and it won't be so much the words that come to me. They haven't come to me yet, by the way, but it's what lies behind the words. So what else have we got? We've also got Andrea, who's happy to share the mic and tell you about what she believes is the single most important that she's learnt when she's on a tilt. And I certainly hope we have time for that. And the second thing, of course, is I have to crack the technology. And I know I have Brendan in the audience, and I've already opened a mic for him, or could do, but that was a mistake, Brendan. Don't worry, you don't have to say anything. It's Andrea that I need to find in a minute or so. So here we go. The first question, which I said would be an easy one. It's from Barrett. Good afternoon, Barrett, wherever you're from. And you ask, what are the costs associated with the webinar? Well, the good news for you and the less good news for me is that for you and anybody who signs up, it is absolutely free. And that's the way that I wish to keep it. The bad news for me is that I have to pay a monthly subscription for this platform, which is an excellent platform, by the way. And that is about $50 a month, which I can just about afford. So am I doing this for charity? No, I'm not that big-hearted. I'm doing it for several reasons, really. The first one is that I love learning about new methods of getting my message across to people. I'm quite experienced now with being on TV and being on radio and giving live events to hundreds or even thousands of people. But I have to say that the skill set required for a webinar are challenging. But as every show goes by, I learn more and more about it. And perhaps I'll mention that again when we start talking about fear. The other reason I do it is because it enables me to reach a completely new audience, and new audiences bring new ideas and new thoughts and new challenges. And of course, it helps, peripherally, it helps to grow my business because it drives more people to my website and to my YouTube channel in particular. And the more downloads I get on YouTube, the higher profile I get. And sometimes people buy my courses and things, quite a few people, when they visit my website, but none of you are under any obligation to do that at all, because the main reason I do these things is because it's fun. So may the fun commence. I'm first of all going to read this. This is the big question. It is the mother of all questions, and I'm not exaggerating. And just because one person has asked this, I can assure you that if this question is going to apply to you, it applies to all of my clients and is probably, no, definitely the most important thing that I do. So here goes. This is from Carol. Hello, Carol. Thank you so much for putting this question. And I tell you what, questions make my job easier. There would be nothing worse if there were no live questions for me to answer, because I'd feel like a teacher talking to a blackboard or a whiteboard or whatever they use these days. And I don't like giving speeches, but I love dealing with real stuff. So here we go, Carol. How do you get in touch with, recognize, know, trust your instinct, gut feeling, truth, whatever you call it? Yes, Carol, we call it all of those things and other things as well. Already getting warmed up by your question. What your heart wants in a big dilemma. I want to know what the right thing to do is and trust it's the right thing for me. Yeah, I bet you do. I feel I want to be hypnotized and find out on a subconscious level what I truly want, so my decision isn't head-based or affected by fear of outcomes. Well, there are several reasons why I welcome this question. Of course, in the last word, but 3, was that word fear. And that was what I was prepared to talk about for the next 30 hours. Relax, 30 minutes, if there was nothing else to. So I'm going to address this a lot more superficially, but sometimes, very often actually, less is more. Now, the problem with fear is that we don't really know what that word is, and we use the word incorrectly, which makes it harder to find a way around it. So let me give you my definition of fear, and with all of the things that I say, it's only my definition. To me, fear is when your life is in a position of risk, and you're at risk of death or serious injury. And anything that doesn't fit into that category is not really fear, and I'll explain why. And some of you will have been in that position. If you've been in I hate to talk about these things, but if you've been in a serious car crash or something like that, you will have known what genuine fear is. And I certainly have been in that situation more than once. I've had what can best be described as a colorful career as a medical doctor. I worked in Africa for a large part of it. Overall, I think I worked for 17 years or something overseas. And they weren't in lovely places like the Caribbean. They were in places that we call challenging, but which are also extremely rewarding places to work. I've spent 7 years in Angola during the Civil War, which there were some things that weren't pleasant at all about that. And you can't really live and work in a place like that for 7 years without being touched by some things. And I worked in another African country for 4 years. And although it wasn't in a state of civil war, quite frankly, it could be described as that, although for good reasons people don't like to use those words. And indeed, I think I probably had more of those sort of bad experiences, fearful experiences in that country than I did in the other. And so what is my take on fear from a personal level and from work with my clients and from what I read and see from other people? Well, actually, fear is not a bad experience at all. The situation that caused it is, but fear itself isn't, because if you're under fire or in a car crash or whatever it might be, actually your mind goes completely blank and hard to say, but calm. And you see the world with instant clarity, and which is just as well, because the chances are you need to do something to get out of that situation. And the answers come pretty easy to you. What And of course, we see this most frequently with people who go in for these extreme sports, climbing to the top of tall buildings without any ropes or safety devices, people who then throw themselves off these buildings with a simple little parachute tied to their back, people who climb the most difficult climbs without any safety things. And of course, some of these people, because they get a huge kick from this feeling, it is a good feeling, and they push it to the limits, and sadly, sometimes beyond the limits. So fear itself is nothing to worry about. But the reason why I say we use the wrong word is because what we talk more commonly about fear is actually worry. And they are two distinctly different things. Fear is based on reality. Worry is based on hallucinations, quite frankly, things that we think might happen in the future to us, and they go round and round and round in our heads, ever faster, unless we can do something to stop those worries. And other words for that are anxiety or panic attacks, and they are totally different to fear. So knowing that distinction gives us some answers, because it's not what we worry about that counts. It's not what we think about that counts. It's the way we think about it. Now, if we can recognize, you see, our thoughts are not expressed in words. They're emotions, and they come from the depths of our brain. And if these thoughts are strong enough, they rise up and they become processed by the higher centers, by consciousness. Now, consciousness will recognize a bad feeling. And because we always like to put labels on things in our internal dialogue, it's, I've got this bad feeling, what's causing it? Oh, I know. It's because I know I've got to do a driving test, or I've got a difficult interview, or something coming up, something that I'm worried about. Well, if we can recognize that thought as it is, I mean, I'm not saying that a driving test isn't stressful. Well, maybe I'm saying that it shouldn't be, actually, because is worry going to help you? You're going to show up on that day. You're going to have revised the questions that you might have to answer. You'll have had driving lessons and things. What is the best thing that you can do? Well, your instructor will tell you, don't worry. Turn up early, turn up prepared, and then go out and give it your best shot and enjoy it. Enjoy it is the main thing. If you've got this internal dialogue going round and round and round, it will take away from your performance. That happens to everybody. It happens to athletes. It happens to anybody under pressure. You do not give your best performance under pressure if you're racked with worry. So there's my 10 cents on fear. I could go on a lot longer, but I want to get back to this question. How do you get in touch with, recognize, know, trust your instinct, gut, feeling, truth, whatever you call it? How do you get in touch with it? Carol asks. What your heart wants. The only way you get in touch with this, Carol, is you get in touch with it on the inside. You're not going to find an answer here from me or from a book or a course or a magic pill. You're going to find the answer to that question inside. Now, you don't know what I mean by that, so I'm going to try and explain. I'll just read through a bit more of your question. I want to know what the right thing to do is. Okay, you already know what the right thing to do is, but you can't find that feeling. You're searching for that feeling, which might be all the ways you've described. It might be your gut instinct. It might be in your heart. But you do know already what the right thing is, because as we will say on all of these shows, the unconscious mind is way more powerful than the conscious mind. And the trouble is, you see, that the reason why these thoughts, these emotions are not making sense at the moment is because they're being crowded out by this overthinking that is going on. And then you go on, I feel I want to be hypnotized and find out on a subconscious level. Well, I've already said you're only going to find it out on a subconscious level or an unconscious level. I definitely agree with that statement. So you're more than halfway to recognizing that yourself. What I truly want In your unconscious mind, there is only truth. There is clarity. I was talking about the clarity that true fear brings, because that's when you're running in your unconscious mind. There can be no other way. So my decision isn't head-based. Good. This thing can get us all into a lot of trouble. It has its uses, but not for something as important as this, or affected by fear of outcomes. Fear of outcomes. We are all haunted by fear. In fact, I had a meeting in London a couple of days ago, and we weren't talking quite about what you put here, but we were talking on a very similar thing. And because I've written a lot of books and articles, I kind of take it for granted that that's something that I do. But a lot of people ask me for advice. They will say, you know, I'm writing a book, but I don't really know whether I have the courage to publish it. So my conversation will go something like this. Okay, what's the book about? That's the easy question. How many words have you written? 60,000, somebody told me. Trust me, I know how long it takes to write 60,000 words. And then this person said, but I don't think it's good enough. Well, how many books have not been written? How many films have not been made? How many works have not been created? How many projects have not been attempted? How many businesses have not started because the people involved didn't think they were good enough? Well, this is my highly simplistic take on this. It's not about you, because you are probably the least qualified person on this planet to judge whether you're good enough. The only way to find out whether you're good enough is to do this stuff. You've had some kind of creative urge that has come from somewhere, and really it's a crime against yourself if you've had this burst of creative energy and not allow it to find its outlet because of something called fear. And I mentioned, this isn't right. Having a book published is not going to end up in your death or serious injury. It might be disappointing when you get a terrible review. I know how that feels, but I can assure you that it's really nice when you get 5-star reviews, and you're going to get both. And you know what authors say, and I don't know whether they're right or we're just trying to boost ourselves up. They say a 1-star review is from somebody who's jealous of you. So that's what I care to believe. I don't know whether it's true or not. So fear, this is the cost of fear, of unjustified fear. It stops people doing stuff. And there are literally thousands of examples I could have shared with you, but you'll know your own. So there's a bit of food for thought. And then Carol says, I feel I want to be hypnotized and find out on a subconscious level what I truly want. Well, Carol, this show is about getting lucky, and maybe you just have got lucky, because I'm looking at you right now, and in fact I'm looking at everybody else who's on the show and everybody else who's going to watch the download, because people tell me that I'm a hypnotist, a very good one. Now, I don't know whether I am or not. It's just something that comes fairly easily to me. But as I said earlier, it's for others to decide. I don't care. Well, I do care, but I can't answer that question. All I know is that thousands and thousands of people have bought my hypnosis audio books and made them #1 in the charts. So, and I know the emails that they sent me. What I don't know is how many people actually really disliked it, but I don't need to know that either. So how do you find this place inside you? The ways, generations have asked this question, and there are ways that people have found that helps. People have found that meditation helps. It's only in a quiet mind that the truth can speak, said somebody famous whose name escapes me. People have found it through yoga. People have found it through breathing exercises. People have definitely found it by hypnosis. People have found it through taking drugs of various kinds, which I don't recommend, of course, because I think there's softer, kinder ways to find it than that. So how you find it, Carol, you will be guided once again, as always. But just think of this little metaphor now. When you were unborn, waiting to be born in your mother's womb, at some point, something even more magical than all of the organs and everything else that was developing, something magical happened, and it probably happened in a split second. You were given a soul, or you had a soul. Now, what on earth is a soul? We don't know. Some people say that it's the presence of God, but it's certainly some kind of spirituality. And what this soul gave you really was a connection in some way to infinite wisdom, to infinite unconditional love, so that these things would be your shield and your armor and your motivation throughout life. You were at this stage a crystal diamond. A diamond is something that can't be damaged by anything else. Nothing will stick to a diamond. Nothing will cut a diamond apart from another diamond. And your soul, your inner resilience, at that time was a diamond. But then you get born and you go through life and stuff starts to happen. And I mentioned nothing sticks to a diamond, but things can certainly cover up a diamond. So as you go through life and you get older and older and you think you get smarter and smarter, you try and, you know, the diamond is not shining as bright as it used to. So you put stuff on. You put some kind of lacquer on, or nail varnish or wood varnish, I don't know, whatever it is, to cover it up so that it looks shiny again. But it will never look as shiny as it did before you were born, unless you're able to go into your subconscious mind and remove and blow away all of these things that you've accumulated over the years that have got inside, or got in the way of your inner spirituality. Philosophers and religious geniuses and experts throughout the ages have tried to describe this. And the model that I use a lot is Carl Jung's view of the collective unconscious. And if you can truly believe in at least the possibility of the existence of something inside yourself that is actually far, far, far greater than you can imagine possible, that is there for you all of the time, running in the background, something you're most of the times you're never even aware of, but is always there and will always guide you. This will help you in any challenge that you face in your life. And okay, you're in a situation in your life now where you talk about a dilemma. That means this and that, and you don't know which. But as I said at the beginning, you already know. And I have given you some thoughts about how you might get into that place. You might get into that place in your sleep. You might want to try writing your question down and putting it by the side of your bed and committing it to your unconscious mind while you're sleeping to give you guidance. And that works for many people. So, Carol, I hope that's helped, and I hope that helps anybody, because this really does work in any situation. I try my best, and it's not easy to do, I agree with you. But whenever I'm faced with any stressful situation or some situation that I just can't make a decision, I just remind myself of the inner diamond. And that's when I say I feel as if sometimes I truly am supported by invisible giants, because I truly do. And this is all a part of how, I say people get lucky. I mean, to say that trivializes the importance of it, but it's just, these things are all just ways of getting ideas across. So if anybody's got any questions on that, you can text me right now. Now I'm just going to find out if I can bring Andrea in, and my apologies, Andrea, if I can't. There's a few people here that I can tick their boxes, Andrea, but you're not one of them. I don't know whether that means you haven't got some kind of microphone connected to your computer or mobile phone or whatever that might be. I do have a few people whose names I can see who I could press a button. So if any of you are really brave at short notice, here's something coming in. What is this? That's just somebody else who's joined us. Okay, so sorry about that, Andrea. It looks like it isn't going to work today, but I'm sure that she was, we'll definitely try another week and try and figure out the technology of why we weren't able to invite her live on air. So I think that is more than enough. I've given you loads to think about with the unconscious mind. Do listen to this, okay? Do listen to this again if necessary. Definitely do a little more thought. Yeah. That's a message from Andrea. She's on a Mac. And we'll have to try and work that out for another show. So what's going to be on the show next week? Well, I don't know. I know there's going to be, well, to the best of my knowledge, there will be a show next week at the same time. I will think of something. I mean, I did talk about fear. It's a universal emotion. There are many other universal emotions that have a much greater influence on our thoughts and actions than we give them credit for. I could easily pick one of those at random. But my strong preference, as I mentioned before, is I want to deal with your stuff, because I doubt there's anything that you can throw at me that hasn't been thrown at me before. And if there is something, then I'll just say, I'm sorry, I don't have any idea about this, but test me. And we will all enjoy the results and the amusement, I'm sure. So until then, I wish you an incredibly lucky week. Get in touch with your intuition. Oh, I did forget to say, of course, that when people are asked, what is the main part of how do my clients get the results they get? It all comes down at the end of the day to that one word, intuition. I connect people to their intuition, which is why I never claim the credit for their results, because they do everything themselves. I just help them find that way to the sweet spot. So have a wonderful week. As I said, have lots of luck, share it around. Universal generosity is always rewarded. And with that comment in mind, if you know anybody else who might be interested in these shows, please do share the links with them and put it on Facebook. I've had some nice comments back from people on the previous shows. Some of them say that, they really like this or whatever. So trust me, I do like reading those comments. It makes me think that it's nice for all of us to be appreciated. And as I said, I'm more than happy to keep doing these shows. So, brilliant. See you soon. Bye-bye.